So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Coach Caton.
Hey,
Coach, what's going on,
hey,
man?
what's up?
By the way, this green is really in the room.
Yeah.
I feel the love, I feel the heart, and I'm happy to be immersed in what it is that you're about to share, right? And I'm happy to receive that today. So thank you for being here and go ahead and take the stage. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's I like to say it's cloudy out there, but sunny in here. It's a good time, right? And I'm happy to be here. So I'm grateful to have you invite me to this experience and to see what we create together.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to start off with a random question, I guess.
Okay.
All right. Right, right. What are two words that someone would use to describe you?
Hmm. I would say loving for sure.
Okay.
Um, and maybe particular.
Tell us more about particular, because I've used the word, I guess, two or three times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think particular is a good word. For me, what comes up when I share that word is that it is deliberate and intentional. It's in alignment with a vision, but it's not perfect, right? It's not perfectionism, but it is having a particular vision or idea and not having to necessarily marry myself to it. But it does allow me to stay true and firm in what it is that I believe in. Yeah. At least that's what comes up for me.
Right. Right. I'm also hearing authentic.
Yeah, we work to be. Yeah.
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 Authentic with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love that. I think that many, I'd say many people struggle with, I guess people associate particular with rigidness,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is a whole conversation that we can have later.
Yeah.
But I think that being particular, there's freedom in that.
Yeah, I like to think so, right? We show up in ways that are true to ourselves and true to the vision that we may have. It's okay to be particular about that. I appreciate you sharing that your experience of me is an excellence, because that's something that I aim for. It shows up in my work. It shows up in how I often work to present, because sky's the limit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Well, I mean, let's get to it. I mean, so Coach Caton, right? Obviously, you were born Miller,
Yeah.
right? But Coach Caton, for you to gain a title like that indicates that you have particular skills,
Mm-hmm.
a particular way of approaching life that changes, creates change, moves mountains, but it also influences you as an individual, right? And we know that you weren't just born like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my first question to you is, at what point did you realize that being that person that you used to be
Mm-hmm.
was no longer working? And so you had to change the way you are.
Mm. You know, I like to say that ever since I was younger, I feel like my calling was bigger than myself. I didn't know what I was going to be doing. I didn't know how I would be doing it, but something inside of me always said that I am destined to do something that is bigger than myself in some ways. And I think a part of my journey has been being able to have a natural ability to reframe situations that happen in my life. Um, and then it is really about looking at, do my behaviors align with the actions and the values in which I'm working to be, right? Or become. And that's shown up in various stages of my life. Of course, as we go through high school and college and all those things, if that's your journey, you're not the same person of who you were back then as who you are today. And I think that being okay with the idea of expansion and being okay with the idea of stepping into a newer version of yourself and having vision of what that might look like is super important. And giving yourself permission to do that, you know? So I think it's something for me that has been a necessary thing as my vision has grown as well. It's like, what are the skills and the tools that I need to acquire in order to go there? And when do I start to do it? Because if not now, then when, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And when was that journey? What happened?
It's been ongoing.
Right.
I mean, that's the real answer. It's been ongoing. I would say that if I could think back in time, when did it really start? Possibly around college, right? In my early 20s. I think that's when I started to shift, I think, a bit in my ways of thinking. I read a really good book that changed my life. It was called A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle.
Eckhart Tolle,
Yeah.
what? I've read all of his books.
Yeah.
He also has The Power of Now, right?
Yep. So, yeah, I read A New Earth back, and that was like 2008. And I remember reading that book, like searching for my aha moment, because it was a big thing on Oprah back then. She used to have these like life classes with the author, and everybody's talking about their aha moment. And I'm like, where's my aha moment?
Yeah.
And I went through a situation, and it took me, I tell people, like, it took me 6 months to get through 5 chapters of the book. And then I went through a situation that caused a little bit of pain inside of me. And then I decided to read the book from cover to cover. And I finished the book in 2 weeks. It took me 6 months to get through 5 chapters. I then finished the book in like 2 weeks. And yeah, that aha moment really did change my life. I'm happy to share it if you like.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And so this is probably a paraphrase, but life will give you whatever experience is most necessary for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you're having at this moment. And that's when I realized that, oh, this is about me. This is about my growth process. And knowing that the things that started to happen for me, and I've learned that recently, right? It didn't happen to me, it happened for me. To be able to grow and expand in myself, it takes, I think, a level of consciousness to be able to sit with that. But that's a part of what the book is about, right? Is the ego death. And letting that die off so you can expand into the person who you truly are. And so I would say it really started around that time. It's like I'd say 2008. And being able to then understand that whatever was happening in my life was happening for me, that then became like the foundation for me to be able to reframe circumstances that have happened to me.
Yeah, that's a powerful book, by the way.
It is.
I think I've read it about 2 or 3 times. His other book as well, The Power of Now. I mean, knowing his story, the author's story, you know his story, right?
Yeah.
I think at 29 or 30, he had like an epiphany or something. He was suicidal, I believe. And I don't know, something touched him and said, you have to change your life. You got to change your life. So it's to hear where you have been and where you are now seem to be aligned. And what I love about it is that, and I hope that whoever's listening is listening, because you want to notice that when you mentioned about the 6 months, it took you 6 months and then it took you 2 weeks, you developed a consciousness that was, I'm going to use the word starving just to make it enticing, that was starving for information to confirm where you were at that point in your life. It's like man, I came across this material, but I got to go back to it because there's something in it that I missed the last time. So your awareness was heightened. It was fueled by stuff that you couldn't understand before. And now you do. And so your awareness was so open that when you read this book again, you probably felt like, wow, I didn't see this before.
Listen, and I want people to hear what I said too, right? Like, I know that we recording it, you're hearing it, but did you hear what I said, right? I was starving for my aha moment by reading those 6 chapters or 5 chapters in 6 months, just looking. And then when I started the book over, I didn't say this earlier, but the aha moment was actually in chapter 2. I had already passed it. So alignment, right? You know, whatever it was that was happening for me in that moment. And I think that's interesting that you read the book several times, because I'm curious to know what I would get from it if I read it again today. Like, what would resonate with me most today if I were to read that book again? And how would it shift my life? But, you know, I'm grateful to have started reading that book in my early 20s because it really did become the foundation for how in which I showed up for myself, you know, and in the world as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the beautiful part about it is that you made a decision. Your decision was to actually listen to the phase you're in.
Mm.
There's people who are, I'm going to use the word ready, but refuse to listen to that.
Uh-huh.
It's
Yeah.
like being in a relationship and knowing you shouldn't be there,
Uh-huh.
and you stay there, right? But you chose to listen, man.
Yep.
You know, and I think that's beautiful. And I think that that's something that it's a language that you can never explain. But you really got to be in tune with where you are in your life. You got to be in tune with your heart and know it's time for a change.
Yeah. And I would offer that it's the language of accountability,
Right.
right? Self accountability first, because that's what really matters is how we show up for ourselves first. And then there's the spillover, not the empty cup, not the half full cup, but the spillover, right? And when we choose that, I think it first starts by taking accountability for our own lives and not necessarily blaming our circumstances or the situations that happen for us, but understanding that they're happening for us. And not having to be victimized by the situations that happen in real time sometimes. And that's not to say that the situations that happen to people are not things that hurt or are not painful, because they can be. But we have a choice in how in which we respond to the story. That's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. You make the choice, right?
You
And
make
it
the choice.
sounds scary. It's like basically saying, okay, I choose to be to suffer for the changes that I make.
Mm-hmm.
I choose to be responsible for being responsible. You know, so yeah, I mean, you listened
Yeah.
to your life, which I think is important. Which leads me to the next question.
Uh-huh.
And you know what I love about this is that we tend to flow into the next questions naturally.
That's good.
And I love that. I love that. So let's say somebody decides, a listener decides, you know what? I think this is resonating with me. There is something in my life that I need to let go of. I need to make a change in this area in my life. And I've been putting it in my back pocket
Mm-hmm.
because I know that it comes with responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You made the decision. You decided to be responsible for your life. How do you maintain that? How do you maintain juggling who you used to be and who you're trying to be? Because it doesn't just happen from one day to the next. You know, you don't just say, okay, I'm changing, and then tomorrow you're different, right? So how do you maintain that constant now Coach Caton who can come across temptations to go back to the past, but he doesn't because he understands something clicked for him.
Yeah.
So how do you maintain that?
I think the first thing that comes up for me is therapy, right? I like to be very honest and open about that. I think it's really important, especially as men, that we talk about our journeys with therapy, and being open to the idea of mental wellness. And so being able to have that sounding board is very helpful. I've been in therapy for quite a bit now. And it's been an evolutionary process. And my therapist would tell you, like, who I was at like 28 is not the same as who I am today. So I think being able to have that safe space to open up and explore what may be coming up to possibly entice me to go backwards, right? The other part of that is it's like a two-part process too. I think the other part of it is also understanding that we don't heal in a silo. That's been a big thing for me.
Can you say more about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, please say more about
Yeah.
that. Like the asilo part, because I think that that's big. Please
Yeah.
say more about that.
Yeah. So, if for your listeners, for those who have started their own healing journey, they're people who are really quick to say, "Ooh, I'm healed," because I found out what the trigger was, right? I found out what the source was, and they do it from their apartment, away from the source of the trauma or the trigger or whatever that may have been. And then they're, let's just hypothetically say, a family gathering, and they go back and they understand that they have been doing a level of work on themselves that maybe other people have not. And then all of a sudden it's like, ooh, they revert, right? They go backwards. So how we prevent that, or at least how I've prevented that, is I've had to learn that I can't heal in isolation. Not for real, right? You can start the process. There's a level of self-work that has to be done. And I think that isolation plays a part in that. It can be healthy to understand that sometimes we have to separate ourselves to really kind of sift through the noise and sift through some of the things that might come up. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's not necessarily a healthy process to stay there. And so being able to then branch out and go back into community has been something that's been a really important part of my journey. And understanding that how in which we show up in the world can be beautiful, and that we can then also inspire people to change and all those things, right? And then the process of just being able to understand that the silo or the isolation is just a part of that process. Potentially, it may not even be a part of somebody's process, which is okay, because not everybody has the luxury to do that, right? Some people have to go home to a family. Some people have to go back to work and do the things that they are doing, and whatever the case may be. So some people don't necessarily have that luxury to be isolated per se. But being able to understand that it's not just, that's just one part of it. The other part is collectively healing and inspiring the change within other people. Because oftentimes somebody will say, well, oh, you're very evolved, or, oh, you operate at a certain level. I'm not there yet. Which means they notice it, right? They notice the change. They notice how you're showing up. And you can't really gift that back to the world or your community if you're by yourself or if you're in a silo, right? So I think that's really important to recognize and understand, because it is a process. I am not a perfect person by any means. I can have a temper. I can be sad. I'm still a human being, and that's something I have to learn too, is to allow myself to feel my full breadth of emotions as a human being, because happiness and joy is not always the primary driver. Sometimes I'm upset about things, and then giving myself grace to actually feel those things and be okay with it, right? Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I would say that that's maybe a way that you maintain that new version of you.
Yeah.
Grace. Sure. Yeah. Also allowing the human in you.
Yeah.
To be present.
Yeah.
Right. With different ways of responding to it. That's what I'm getting.
Yeah. And there are healthy ways to do that, right? So one of the things that I tend to do is it is a form of, I think, taking a step back from a situation. What I've had to learn is to communicate that, right? So let's say, for example, we're in a relationship.
Yes.
And I'm feeling a certain way about something. What I believe is it's my responsibility to sift through that, right? Like a sifter. You sift through it to figure out, well, what's going on with me? Why did that situation hurt or trigger or whatever it is that happened? What's the situation that happened for me in that moment to recognize or show me something about myself that might still need some work? And then it's also then coming back to say, well, here's to share this situation with the person who may have caused the situation. So we don't make the mistake of putting our stuff on somebody else, right? It's like there's that self-accountability, the ownership of that. Because there's something that happened that we may have brought up something from our past, right? And the person may not have done it even intentionally. So, being able to sift through and take some time to figure that out, and it allows us to come to the table with a healthier perspective, to be able to say, okay, well, this is what happened. It really did hurt. And ideally, the person in which you're engaging with, because we do source higher levels of people when we start to grow and evolve and change, we attract like minds. People can operate in a healthier way of being, right? Yeah. So yeah, it's a process though.
Yeah. I was just about to. By the way, thank you for sharing that. I was just about to say, whoever's listening is probably thinking like, "Wow, do I have to do all of this to really feel like I'm tapping into a higher version of me?" And what I would offer is, it sounds like a lot because you need to practice it. This is a practice that happens on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Right? It sounds like a lot. Intellectually, it sounds like a lot. But once you step into the space where you can access these tools of awareness, tools of mindfulness, like what you said before, which I totally, like, it resonates with me very much. If you feel like you need to, let's say, detach, voicing that is important. If you feel like you need to be responsible with emotions that that are yours, that you need to handle on your own, it's important to share that and to honor that so that people can support you in that. People can love you in that.
Yep. Yes.
See, often, right? People can love you in that.
Yes.
I say, like, for example, me, really quickly, growing up, I believed that if I was angry, I had to isolate so that if I do, let's say, if I explode, I don't have to deal with the, man, they don't like me anymore, right? But I think that there's power in saying, hey, I'm going through a transformation in my life.
Yeah.
I'm shifting.
Yeah.
There's a shift going on. I don't know what it is, but I'm feeling a lot of emotions. And one of those is feeling really moody. People will support you in that if you open your mouth, right? The right people will support you in that.
Yeah.
But sometimes when we have to
The right people.
The right people, right? Right?
Yes.
Emphasis on that.
Yes.
The right people will support you on that.
Yeah.
Because when we choose not to say, then other people don't know how to access what they have to kind of complement where you are in life. Like like Coach Caton said before, the right people.
Yeah.
Right? Because some people will try to pull you out of that change.
Yeah.
They will try to negotiate, have you negotiate your growth in some way.
Oh, yes.
You see, they'll try to negotiate, right? Like, for example, let's say you decide to express, okay, I'm not in the mood to be in the social place right now. Let's say this person who's trying to negotiate your growth is going to say, don't be antisocial, right? Oh, you don't have to be moody. No, just come on, just spend time with us.
Yeah.
Right? The right people will see you and say, this is what's going to help you operate at a higher level. Go ahead, do you take your space.
Yeah. And to your point about the right people, right? And it's a learning process. So I think that just kind of point back to, I learned to communicate that I'm taking time for myself. That's to say that I made a mistake at some point in time, right? By not sharing or opening up my world, by isolating, right? And being in that space of isolation for reasons that I felt were protecting me from whatever it is that may have been experiencing at the time. But I had to learn that it was hurting people who cared for me and who actually loved me, right? And who wanted to show up for me, who wanted to listen to me. And there's that whole thing of not having to do it alone. And I think especially as men, we often feel that way, is that we have to just tighten it up and
we got to muscle it through, baby.
Carry it on our back and just plow through it and keep going, right? And that doesn't allow us to have the full human experience too. And I think the more we begin to talk about these things, the more they'll be, people will resonate with that, and allowing ourselves first to be able to feel those things and go through those things, but also to be able to communicate it with the right people who will help to then support us in our journey. And then we give it back, right? So it becomes a community of sorts. Yeah.
What would you say, what beliefs did you have to change about you to allow you to be in this space right now?
I think that I had to change, and I'm working on changing, this idea of scarcity. And I was talking about that today with a friend. And it's really interesting when you find out certain things about yourself. What's even more interesting is, and revealing, is how in which they show up in different ways.
Yep. Because it's not just money. That's the thing.
It's not. Right? So it's not just money. It's your way of living sometimes. It's like, it's the easiest way to look at it is through the lens of finances. But scarcity is a mindset. And abundance is also a mindset too. And I think for me, like, scarcity is one of those things I had to understand the relationship and how which it was showing up in my life. And I'm still learning that, right? So in sharing that I'm still on my journey too, and understanding how to expand in ways that are greater than myself, that allows me to live the most abundant life that I can possibly live. And a part of that is being able to just take time to self-reflect, right? And be in company with yourself. I think that is something that had to really happen for me so I can be this version of myself. The other part was to stop being so hard on myself. I really have had to start looking at that and allowing myself grace and allowing myself to make mistakes.
What is being hard on yourself?
What is being hard on myself? Is not allowing myself to make mistakes. And I use that as an example because I think we live in a society right now, especially, that we're so quick to somebody did something. And now, granted, there are degrees in which people do things that deserve a look at and need to be handled in a certain way. And then there are things that are just everyday things that people make mistakes for. But because we then idolize certain people or put people on pedestals where they may have not asked to be, we don't allow people to have the ability to make mistakes. And if you can't make mistakes and learn and grow, are you truly living a human experience? Yeah. And a lot of times, how in which those people are showing up for other people is how they're showing up for themselves.
Right. Right. And it brings me into this topic of the cancel culture that people talk about, this canceling culture, right? That finding the minimal things, finding the smallest details to just cancel people.
Yep.
Right? You make a mistake, you said something incorrectly in their eyes, and you're canceled, and you're like put in this light where you're not worthy, where you're not valuable. So I feel that very strongly. And I know that many people do feel that too, because there's been many moments in my life as well where, because I wanted to be perfect, I was worse off because I couldn't express myself. I couldn't just be free. I couldn't just be an individual.
Yeah.
You know, and still then I step into spaces and this past tries to like come up and be like, Stan, put your chest up. Oh, don't say this. Don't act this way. You might look arrogant.
Yeah.
Don't look overconfident.
Yeah.
Right? And when those things come up, it's an invitation for me to tap into what I believe in now. Right?
Yeah.
Things that we create in our own head. Right? And like you said, scarcity. Right? That scarcity mentality, man, it does things. That scarcity mentality does things, man. It puts you in positions where you're like doing stuff and you don't even know why you're doing them.
It's autopilot.
Yeah. You know, so I'm glad that you mentioned that because it's a real thing.
Yeah, for sure. For a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah. These are human experiences.
Yeah.
That we're all going through, by the way.
Yeah.
It's not just one person or two people. A lot of people are experiencing these type of things. And especially when you mentioned the idea of the cancel culture and things of that nature. What's very interesting about that from my perspective is that what happens is that people start to gain this power, right? And you see it online all the time. And there's this dogpiling without actually understanding facts or understanding truths. And we know, what do they say? A lie travels faster than a truth does, or fact, because it picks up steam in that way. And sometimes it does really hurt people who are innocent in that process too. It's like, are we wielding the power in an ethical way that is not necessarily harming or causing harm to people? And so it takes time to, or it's worth taking the time to actually understand what it is that we are sharing or putting out into the world before we start doing it, because it could cause harm to somebody who doesn't necessarily deserve that. And again, I think I want to revisit that idea that people do things sometimes that are really harsh and really bad to other human beings. And that's worth investigating and worth looking at in those ways, for sure. And at the same time, with great power comes great responsibility for the masses, right? And so when we can get to a place where we can start just taking time to pause a little bit, because it's so easy, and I'm not sure if you've ever experienced this, but if you've ever gotten mad before, it's really easy sometimes to just get into a fit of rage when something you're really passionate about comes to the front, and maybe somebody got hurt, or you hurt somebody that, yeah, you know, whatever it might be. Right. There's emotions that kind of bubble up and they take over. And we have to sometimes just ground ourselves for a moment and just take our time to be able to sit into whatever it is that we're sitting into, and investigate. Do some investigation. Do some research.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man, I feel like we could talk about this for hours.
Yeah.
Because something else came up for me. I'm going to say it. It, like you mentioned, it can hurt the wrong person. It can hurt the wrong people, because it can hurt somebody who decided, okay, today, starting today, I choose to be open about who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and I choose to be open about the stuff that I'm trying to figure out about me.
Mm-hmm.
And when they go through this experience of, man, I just chose to be open and my whole family's rejecting me now.
Mm.
When they step into that space, there could be a turn back. He's like, oh, I'm not doing this no more. Right? It's either you get to the peak of the mountain, it's either you go to the other side or you go right back to where you came from.
Mm-hmm.
So that person who was willing to open up and be real about their life, and then they get that feedback around them, that can it create a snowball back. You know? I can wake up today and be like, you know what? All right. I'm gonna be the confident man that I am. I go ahead and talk to somebody and that person tells me, you're arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I've been battling this whole time, not to look arrogant.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody tells me that, I'm going right back to my shell. So somebody's beginning might also be their end.
Yeah.
If they don't have that will, if they don't have that wit, they're like, nah, I'm gonna be the person that I said I was gonna be.
Yeah.
You know, so it can be dangerous in some way.
Yeah, but it also goes back to mindset, right? Because what I'm also hearing is scarcity. We can look at the family example situation, that in which somebody may share something with their family and then they're rejected. Does your family stop there? I think that we've heard the term blood is thicker than water.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
In my experience,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been very blessed to have an amazing family, but also a huge chosen family of people who know and love me so much. And I think that when people start to understand that you can choose your family as well, it doesn't have to be blood, it could be other people that can support you and show up for you in ways sometimes more than what your actual family does. And they can show up in ways that will change your world and change your life if we allow it to. But
Yep.
first we have to be expansive in our thinking about what family really means. And there are just amazing opportunities to expand your circle of people around you. But it also does take for people to understand their mindset and how in which you're showing up in the world. Are you looking at everybody to hurt you? Or are you being like distrustful to people? Like just people that just prove those things?
Right.
That's an energy that we're putting out.
Mm.
You know, I like to think that I have in many ways in my life, like to look at people, definitely discerning for sure. Just put that out there. It is a discernment first. And at the same time, if we look for certain things or evidence of that, we're bound to find it.
We're gonna find it.
We're gonna find it.
Oh yeah.
Right?
It's like they say, you what you look for is what you get. No,
Yeah.
what is it? What's the saying? What's the expression? You always get what you look for. Something like that.
Yeah, I haven't heard that one, but
Yeah.
you know,
You get
we'll
what you
go
look
with
for.
it, right?
If you're looking for it, you're gonna find it. Something like that. I don't know. But yes.
Yeah, if you're looking for something, you're gonna find it.
You're gonna find it, right.
And this is the truth. So back to choice. If we can choose to look for the good in people versus the bad,
Yes.
why are we making a choice to always go one direction over the other?
Right.
That's something worth examining in ourselves,
Yeah.
because you can have more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So much in there. So much in there. And by the way, y'all, this is what Coach Caton does, right? He, as he mentioned before, a reframer. I'm going to call him a reframer, right?
Chronic reframer.
Chronic reframer. Not just no ordinary reframer, a chronic reframer. You know, this is what he does.
Right.
And so we know you've been through it,
Yeah.
and you continue to do so. But now that you're here, what perspective or advice or insight would you give the past, let's say, Miller,
Little Miller.
little Miller, small Miller,
Yeah.
when before the chronic reframing?
Yeah. Yeah. That's that. First of all, you are loved tremendously. Life can be hard at times, especially when we're younger and we're trying to figure ourselves out. But you are deeply loved by many people. And you don't have to try and do it all on your own. I think that's really important. It's been a lesson that I'm still learning, right? Is that I don't have to do it alone. And that I can lean into people. If I can look for the evidence of people that love and support me, they will show up. But I first have to do it, right? I first have to be brave enough to open my heart and lead with my heart and know that what and which will I desire will show up. I think that's really important. And yeah, just you got it. Everything's already there. Yeah. From the heart.
From the heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Coach Caton, thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for your time.
Thank
But
you.
before we go, I have a last question. Random question. I love catching
Another random question.
you with random questions. This would be, I guess, a fun question.
Okay.
Just to kind of explore more. If you could save me from something, what would it be?
If I gave you from something, what would it be? Yourself.
In what way?
Yeah, we'll go with that answer. I think in many ways we're mirrors of each other in the world. And sometimes when we are going through certain things, it's easy for us to spot it in others. And sometimes we get in our own way. And so being able to show up for somebody and help save them from themselves and in a way that can help them grow and expand or inspire them to grow and expand, that would be something worth doing, right? Because we are all mirroring each other in one way or another. And you think about a mirror, it reflects back the inverse of what's being presented to it. So it doesn't always show up the same way per se, but sometimes you'll share something with me. I'm like, oh yeah, that I definitely resonate with that. And I've been through it for sure. And I can see where you might be stuck, right? And then we can work through that together.
Awesome.
How's that land?
It landed.
Yeah.
Right. Now, before you go, definitely tell the listeners anything you have going on for yourself. Social media, where can people find you?
Yeah.
Let people know what's going on with you.
Yeah, so I have some social media. I have Caton Wellness across all social media channels. We have Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook. And yeah, I'm planning some really great things for the summer. I'm working to develop an event that should be coming up sometime within the next 85 days or so. That is geared towards the success and the growth of Black men's health and their whole health. So I'm looking forward to that. And just looking forward to a really good summer with some events. And so just, take a look at the social media. We should be able to start posting some things and keep people in a loop and start to develop community in ways that really matter.
Thank you. Man, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate this conversation. And thank you for contributing to the vision, brother. I mean it. I mean it very much. This requires time. And I know time is of essence. I understand that time is of essence. And for you to be here means a lot, man, for real. So, there you have it, y'all. I hope that something in here got to you, touched you. And I don't know, something clicked for you. And this is the intention of this podcast, to bring in people who are looking forward, who have acquired tools in their life that helps them in looking forward, right? Because looking forward can also be intellectual. But these people are actually taking the steps towards that because they know the importance in that, they know the value in that, and they don't want to do it by themselves, right? They're not the only ones who need it. So they want to share that knowledge and they want to share those tools with you. And I really hope that something stuck with you. So thank you for being here. Thank you so much. And I cannot wait to be with you in the next episode or moment. So stay tuned, stay immersed, keep living your life. And I hope that this moment was in addition to what happiness looks like for you. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace.